My husband died 5 years ago. Every single month, I sent $200 to my in-laws to pay off a debt. One day, my neighbor from the floor below told me, "Stop sending them money and look at that security camera." The next day, I reviewed the footage. The scene that unfolded before me left me frozen. The smell of peeling plaster mixed with the funk of drains that hadn't been cleaned in years hit me the moment I turned off the engine of my old car at the foot of the building. This old brick tenement had survived in the heart of Chicago for more than 70 years, just as worn out and decrepit as the people slowly wasting away inside it. I locked my burgundy sedan near the corner, right where a patch of red paint marked the spot it had occupied for the last 5 years. Today was the 5th of the month, the day when I, Keshe, a 32-year-old widow, had to fulfill the obligation of paying my late husband's debt. 5 floors, no elevator. I adjusted my purse. My hand unconsciously brushed against the bulging envelope in the inside pocket. $200. An insignificant amount for the rich, but a sixth of my meager salary. Money for Malik's milk, for his tutoring, for his basketball league fees. 5 years ago, so that Marcus could go work in the oil fields of North Dakota, his parents withdrew all their retirement savings, a total of $12,000, and gave it to him. The day Marcus died, his mother pointed a finger at me, accusing me that because of me her son had to leave home, only to end up losing his life, leaving them, two elderly people, empty-handed. She forced me to assume the responsibility of paying back that amount, divided into $200 a month for 5 years. I gritted my teeth and accepted, considering it the last gesture of love toward my husband and a way to have peace to raise my son. The stairwell was a dark, deep well, barely lit by weak rays of sun filtering through the dirty glass of the air shaft. The echo of my footsteps rang out on the worn tiles. Clack, clack, clack. Every step was a dead weight. On the first floor, the superintendent always had the radio blasting. On the second, the smell of burnt red beans escaped from a communal kitchen. On the third, a young couple was arguing loudly about the rising electric bill. When I reached the fourth, the silence became almost total, and the fifth, where my in-laws lived, was a world apart, possessing a creepy stillness. I stopped on the landing of the 5th floor, wiping the sweat from my temples. My chest felt tight, and my heart was pounding hard, not just from the effort, but from the vague sense of unease that always invaded me in front of that iron door painted appealing blue. Apartment 504, Marcus' parents' house. I knocked 3 times with sharp, clear raps. Knock, knock, knock. Silence. I knew they were home. They never went anywhere. Elijah, my father-in-law, suffered from arthritis, and Viola, my mother-in-law, always complained of headaches and dizziness. Both lived like shadows in that 600-square-foot apartment with the blinds drawn and the door bolted tight day and night. I knocked again, louder this time. "Pop, Mom, it's Kesha." Almost a minute passed until I heard the shuffling of slippers inside. The sound of the deadbolt sliding back was dry, like the cracking of an old man's bones. The door opened just a crack, barely enough for a wrinkled and grumpy face to peek out. It was Viola. She was a little over 60, but looked much older. Her eyes, sunken and surrounded by dark circles, always looked around with suspicion, as if she feared someone would steal her soul. She didn't open the door all the way. She kept the security chain on, creating a cold barrier between her world and mine. "Is that you?" Her voice was lacking emotion. "Yes. Hi, Mom. I'm here to bring this month's money." I tried to keep a smile, though I felt my face muscles stiffen. "Give it here," she said curtly. I opened my purse hurriedly and took out the envelope I already had prepared. I offered it with 2 hands through the narrow opening. Here is this month's $200 so you can buy your medicine. Viola reached out a bony hand crossed with blue veins and snatched the envelope with the speed of a bird of prey. Without counting it or looking at it, she stuffed it directly into the pocket of her house coat. The gesture was so automatic and decided that I felt like a stranger in debt, not her daughter-in-law. "Is Malik okay?" she asked without looking me in the eye, shifting her gaze toward the stairs behind me, as if watching to see if someone was coming up. "Yes, he's doing great. He doesn't stop asking about his grandparents. This weekend, if you want, I can bring him over to spend the day with you. I have almost finished paying the debt. I'd like you to be more comfortable with him." Upon hearing that, Viola's face soured, and she waved her hand nervously. "No, no. Your father is doing bad with his leg, and I have a headache. A child in the house is too much ruckus. We aren't up for noise. Finishing the payments is your business. We'll call you when we're feeling better so you can bring him." The same excuse as always. In 5 years, the times little Malik had stepped into that house could be counted on the fingers of one hand, and every time they kicked us out after 15 minutes with any pretext. "Okay, well, maybe another time." I lowered my head, swallowing the bitterness rising in my throat. "Go on, leave now. Standing in the draft, you were going to catch a cold, and then it's worse." Saying this, Viola slammed the door shut. The deadbolt sounded with a definitive click. I stood there planted, looking at the cold and impersonal iron door. Not an invitation to come in, not a glass of water. I pressed my ear to the door, hoping to hear my father-in-law's voice, or at least the sound of the television, any normal noise of an inhabited house. But no. Inside reigned absolute silence. A terrifying silence, as if that house were a giant tomb devouring any sound of life. The wind sneaked through the stairwell, chilling my back. I shivered and pulled up the collar of my jacket, turning around to go down. My heart felt heavy. "Marcus, you left and stuck me with this debt. I've almost finished paying it. Why are your parents still so cold to your son and me?" The question floated in my mind, getting lost in the void of the dark staircase. I didn't know that in the precise instant it turned around, a pair of eyes was watching me through the cracked blind, a look that wasn't that of an old man, but one sharp and calculating. I went down to the courtyard feeling like I was escaping an airless basement. The afternoon sun, a pale yellow, filtered through the branches of the trees, drawing spots of light on the concrete ground. The atmosphere of the courtyard contrasted with the stillness of the fifth floor. Some kids were playing basketball, shouting at the top of their lungs. Several women sitting on benches were snapping beans and gossiping animatedly. I was heading toward my car, ready to start it to go pick up my son, when a wrinkled but firm hand grabbed my wrist. "Keshe, is that you, Babby?" I turned, startled. It was Miss Hattie. She had been the president of the tenant association back in that day, and although she was retired, she kept that air of authority and the taste for knowing everything. She was sitting on a stone bench, fanning herself with a piece of cardboard and looking at me intently with narrowed eyes. "Yes, hi, Miss Hattie. Enjoying the breeze?" I greeted her politely. Miss Hattie didn't answer my trivial question. She made me sit beside her and looked around as if she feared someone would hear her. Then she leaned close to my ear and whispered with an air of mystery, "Did you go up to pay the debt to those two again?" It surprised me she knew about such a private family matter, but I nodded. Yes, today was payment day. Miss Hattie clicked her tongue and shook her head with an expression of compassion mixed with certain fear. She lowered her voice even more. "Poor thing, working like a mule to support people who don't deserve it. Listen to me good. Next month don't give them a single cent." I frowned, note, understanding her. Miss Hattie was known for being a gossip, but she wasn't a bad person who would incite children to beg, cruel, or not pay their debts. Why do you say that? I only have a couple of months left. It's for the $12,000 Marcus borrowed to go to North Dakota. I have to fulfill my obligation." Her hands squeezed my arm tightly. Her eyes opened wide, staring at me, and her voice, though trembling, pronounced every syllable with hardness. "They say around here that the dead sometimes ain't that dead." A chill ran down my spine. I got goosebumps. Miss Hattie's words were like a blast of freezing air from the beyond in broad daylight. "What are you saying? My husband died 5 years ago. We have the death certificate. We even brought his ashes back." She interrupted me with a wave of her hand. "I ain't talking about ghosts. I'm talking about flesh and blood people. Haven't you noticed that house is quieter than a church during the day, but around 1 or 2 in the morning you hear noises? One night, I couldn't sleep. I went out on my balcony to smoke a cigarette and saw the shadow of a man going up to the 5th floor. The way he walked looked real familiar to me. Real familiar." My heart started to beat hard. Yes, that way of limping with the shoulder dropped a little. Just like Marcus after he broke his leg in that motorcycle accident. And the strangest thing is that whenever you come to bring the money that same night or the next, that shadow appears. I stood paralyzed, mind blank. Marcus died in a work accident in North Dakota. A representative from the contracting company brought us the urn with his ashes. Surely you were mistaken. Your eyesight isn't what it used to be. I tried to find a logical explanation, but my own voice was trembling. Miss Hattie shot me a sharp look. "I'm old, but I ain't senile. Besides, I saw him. He was wearing a cap pulled down to his eyebrows and a face mask. If he was a thief, he'd be lurking around." But this one took a key out of his pocket and opened the door like it was his house. "If you don't believe me, that's your problem. But listen to me and check it." On the landing between the 4th and 5th floor, the building management just installed a security camera for robberies. "Ask someone with connections to get you the footage." Saying this, Miss Hattie let go of my arm and went on, fanning herself as if nothing happened. I got up with trembling legs and walked toward my car. My head was a whirlwind. Miss Hattie's words echoed inside me. "Not that dead, walks with a limp," opened the door like it was his house. I put the key in the ignition with shaking hands. A vague but overwhelming fear began to take over me. If Marcus was alive, why had he let me carry this enormous debt for 5 years? The streets of Chicago at rush hour were chaos. But I felt completely detached from all that. In my head, a movie was repeating in slow motion, connecting fragmented memories of the last 5 years. I remembered the visits to my in-laws. Why did Viola always demand the money with such hardness? The $12,000 were their retirement savings. They didn't need it immediately. Why did they insist I pay them $200 every month without missing a cent? Their combined Social Security checks totaled almost $2,000. Living where they lived, it was more than enough for two elderly, austere people. What did they need? $200 more in cash for every month to save or to support someone. Once last summer in infernal heat, I brought them a bag of oranges. When Viola opened the door, I saw out of the corner of my eye that inside the house the blinds were completely drawn. They didn't have air conditioning or the windows open. How did two old people stand the heat like that unless they were trying to hide the presence of someone else? "Mama, Malik is waiting for you." The high-pitched voice of my son brought me back to reality. I had arrived at the gate of his school. The boy ran toward me, sweating. I hugged him, feeling a knot in my stomach. Malik's father. The day I received the news of Marcus's death, I fainted several times. Viola only repeated that he had gone to seek a better future for the family. Now that he's died, we are left with nothing and with debts. You are his wife. You have to take charge. for the love of my son, so he wouldn't lose his grandparents. I accepted working without rest to pay the debt. But what if what Miss Hattie said was true? The idea made me swerve, almost crashing into a car coming in the opposite direction. "Mama, are you okay?" asked Malik, scared. "Yes, baby. It's nothing. I'm just a little tired." When we got home, after making dinner and putting my son to bed, I sat in front of the computer. The screen glowed, but I couldn't concentrate. I opened a drawer and took out my budget notebook. The line, "Pay debt, grandparents, $12,000" was circled in red. I had paid for 58 months. Only 2 were left. If Marcus was alive, it meant I wasn't paying a debt, but that they were scamming me. I remembered the detail of the limp. Marcus had broken his left ankle in a motorcycle accident in 2018. Suspicion like acid began to corrode my trust. I needed proof. I grabbed the phone and looked for a name in my contacts. Dant was a cousin of mine, a young computer genius. "Kesha, what's going on calling me at this hour?" "Dant, are you busy? I need a favor." "Tell me." "Yes, it's something delicate. Do you know anyone who manages the cameras in the building where my in-laws live?" There was a silence on the other end. "The one on the south side. I got a friend in the security company that installed them." "Why? Did something get stolen?" "Yes, something like that. I think I dropped my wallet on the stairs." "Is there any way you can get me the files from the camera on the stairs between the 4th and 5th floor for the last 3 months? I'll ask tomorrow and let you know, please, Dad. It's very important." I hung up with my palms soaked in sweat. The arrow had already left the bow. I had just started mid-search for the truth. The next afternoon, I met Dant on the patio of a hidden coffee shop down a side street. He arrived on time and pulled a laptop out of his backpack. "Kesha, what's wrong with you? You were so tense. You look bad." He looked at me with concern. I forced a smile. "How's it going? Did you get anything?" Dant nodded. "You got lucky. The system saves everything to the cloud. My friend passed me the files." "What day do you say you lost the wallet?" "Put on the 5th or 6th day of every month between 1 and 3 in the morning." Dant typed in silence. "Here it is. Day 6 of last month. Look at this." He turned the screen toward me. The image was grainy, black and white. The camera focused from the 4th floor, landing up toward the 5th. The hallway was deserted. The clock marked 1:45 a.m. and 20 seconds. A shadow appeared coming up the stairs. I felt my heart stop. The man was wearing a baggy jacket and a cape pulled down that hid half his face. He was wearing a mask. "Stop. Put it in slow motion." My voice sounded strange. Danton pressed a key. The man climbed the steps, first the right foot. Then he dragged the left with a slight limp. His left shoulder dipped a little when he put weight on that leg. That walk. I covered my mouth to suppress a sob. It was unmistakable. It was Marcus. I stared at the screen. The man arrived at door 5 or 4. He didn't knock. He put his hand in his pocket, took out a ring of keys, chose one with skill, and inserted it into the lock. Click. The door opened. He slid inside and closed it very carefully. "Do you recognize someone?" asked Dant with caution. "Put on the previous month." Dant obeyed. The 6th day of the previous month at the same time, the same person, the same stealth, and the same ease opening the door. I watched the 3 videos of the last 3 months in a row. The pattern didn't change. The night after I handed over the money, he appeared. Suddenly, I felt nauseous. Who had I been paying for 5 years? I was paying the very man who was hiding there, who had cruelly allowed his wife and son to suffer for a fake debt. Dance. Copy all this onto a list for men and not a word to anyone, please. Danton saw the seriousness in my face and nodded. "Relax. I won't say anything. I grabbed the squeezing it in my hand. This was huge, bigger than if the sky fell. I got up and ran out of that shop. Marcus was alive, and he, together with his parents, had staged this farce to exploit me to the bone. When I got home, I locked my bedroom door and let myself fall to the floor. The laptop played the video over and over again. I remembered the jacket he was wearing. It was one I myself had given him before he went to North Dakota. Marcus wasn't dead. Why fake his own death? Why use the excuse of a debt to force me to pay it? I remembered the day we received then terrible news. My in-laws wept inconsolably, but right after the funeral service, they brought up the supposed debt. Daughter Marcus left for this family. Now that he isn't here, we are old and have no income. The $12,000 we gave him is lost. Let's see how we fix this. They appealed to my compassion and my sense of responsibility. They knew I would never abandon my husband's parents, and just like that they turned me into their own for 5 years. The pain was transforming into anger, a rage that burned slowly. Almost $14,000 counting interest in gifts. It was my sweet May tears. I had saved every penny to support the ghost of my husband and his 2 accomplices. I looked at the improvised shrine where Marcus's photo kept smiling kindly. I wanted to smash it to pieces, but no, destroying things wouldn't solve anything. I had to stay calm, be smarter than them. You've played your role as a dead man very well, Marcus, I whispered. Well, now, let me play the knave wife a little longer. But this time the director of the play will be me. I opened a drawer and took out a notebook. I started to trace a plan. Step 1. Confirm the identity of the man in the video. Step 2. Investigate the real financial situation of Marcus and his family. Step 3. Find Marcus's hideout. Tomorrow, the hunt would begin. I was going to hunt my own dead husband. The next morning, I got up as always. I made breakfast for Malik, ironed his uniform, took him to school, and then went straight to work. On a sticky note, I started recalculating the figures. Original debt $12,200 a month times 60 months equals $12,000. Plus on holidays, birthdays, and for medicines, I always gave something extra. The total amount I had given them in 5 years exceeded $14,000. Think how I could have changed my life and my son's, and instead, I had thrown it into that bottomless pit on the 5th floor. I sent a message to Dent. Investigate if there are strange movements in my father-in-law's bank account. I suspect the money I give them isn't used to live or pay any debt. Dent replied, that's complicated because of data protection, but I can try indirectly. Give me some time. I put the phone away. I needed to get closer. An idea crossed my mind. If he came back home to collect the money I had just delivered, did he need it for something, or did he live off it? That afternoon I left work early and went by my in-laws' building. I parked the car and sat on a bench pretending to rest. Well, look who it is, Kesha. A shrill voice called me. It was Mrs. Jenkins, the neighbor from the 4th floor. Hi, Mrs. Jenkins. I was passing by and came up to see how the grandparents were doing. Mrs. Jenkins sat next to me. You were so good, child, paying your husband's debt for so long. By the way, are they okay lately? It's just that every night I hear a tremendous ruckus upstairs. Ruckus? What kind of ruckus? Well, that at late hours of the night I hear strong footsteps on the ceiling like a young man, and sometimes I hear the toilet flush at 2 or 3 in the morning. My heart sped up. Must be my father-in-law, with the pain in his leg. He walks more clumsily. I improvised. Mrs. Jenkins made a face. Pain in the leg, my foot. And another strange thing, those 2 are stingier than anyone. Always complaining they were left without money because of what happened to your husband. But lately, every night, I see your mother-in-law go down with a huge black trash bag. The other day, Out of curiosity, I looked and saw pizza boxes and beer cans peeking out. What are two old folks doing eating those things? I stood there stone-faced. Pizza boxes, beer cans, those were Marcus' favorited things. And you didn't ask her? Of course I asked her. She told me they were offerings she put out for the deceased. What an excuse! Who puts out so many offerings? Mrs. Jenkins' story was a crucial piece of the puzzle. Marcus not only went to the house for money, but he probably lived there spending the money I earned with the sweat of my brow. 2 days later, I decided to act. I went to a department store and bought a high-end foot massager. I chose 80 at night for mid-visit. I climbed the 5 floors carrying the bulky box. In front of door 504, I sharpened my hearing. Inside the television and voices could be heard. Eat, son. Eat while it's hot. Your wife just brought the month's money, so spend without fear. It was Viola's voice. Relax, Mass. I got it all under control. When I finish getting paid off, I'll disappear for a while. That fool wife of mine believed it all. She hasn't missed a single month. That voice. I froze. A deep voice, slightly raspy. It was Marcus's voice. My blood boiled. I wanted to kick down the door and enter, but reason stopped. Man, I knocked. Knock, knock, knock. The voices ceased immediately. Who is it? Asked my father-in-law from inside. Pup, it's Keshe. I brought you a foot massage machine. A good while passed until I heard the shuffling of slippers. The door opened a crack. This time it was Elijah blocking the entrance. At this hour, daughter, why didn't you call? I got off work, passed by Macy's, and saw this machine. That works great for your arthritis. Elijah stepped in my path. No, no, leave it there. The house is very messy. I am not a stranger, Pop. Besides, I wanted to come in to light a candle for Marcus. My father-in-law's face fell apart. What nonsense are you saying? Go on, go home. Just at that moment, from the back bedroom, a cough was heard. A dry, short cough of a man. My father-in-law jumped. Your mother is with the cough again. Go now. Go on. He snatched the box from my hands and slammed the door shut. I was left alone in the hallway. That cough wasn't Viola's. Marcus's presence in that house was confirmed. The next morning, I received a call from Dant. Keshe, I found something interesting. I went to see him. He showed me an Excel file on his laptop. I checked the transaction history. The pension checks arrive punctually every month, but they haven't withdrawn a single dollar in years. They have tens of thousands of dollars accumulated. They don't withdraw money. I asked, astonished. Nothing, only deposits. Then what do they live on? The pizza, the beer, the things Mrs. Jenkins says she sees. All that costs money, cash, I said out loud. Apart from my money, someone else has to be giving them cash. Exactly, and that person can only be Marcus. He doesn't make transfers so as not to leave a digital trail. He brings them the money in hand when he goes sneaking in at night, so they aren't it. Needy. They have a fortune that their son gives them, and even so, they've been squeezing you to the last cent. I clenched my fists. This truth was even crueler than if they were poor. They were rich thanks to their son's dirty money, but their greed led them to steal the sweat of my brow. I suspect Marcus is involved in something illegal. The money he makes isn't small. Can you find out what he's doing? That's harder, but I'll try to follow the trail through his old contacts. Thanks, Dant. Marcus was hiding somewhere involved in shady business and using his parents and aunt fake debt to exploit his own family out of pure greed. Leaving Dant, I passed by a print shop. I was still missing one piece. Marcus's death. I remembered that day we received the arm. The representative, a guy named Mr. Tate, said Marcus had had an accident and they had to cremate him urgently. The family couldn't go to North Dakota to identify the body. My in-laws agreed, saying it was better for their son to rest in peace. I decided to call Mr. Tate. Hello. Hi, Mr. Tate. This is Keste, Marcus's wife. Hello, Kesha. How can I help you? I'm processing the widow's pension, and the insurance company is asking me for the original forensic report and the death certificate from the state. Could you help me get them both? That's very difficult. 5 years have passed. Those papers don't exist anymore. Besides, at the time, everything was done via humanitarian channels. The documentation was very basic. Mr. Tate stuttered. Please try. I will compensate you for the trouble. Well, I'll see what I can do, Mr. Tate hung up hurriedly. His attitude confirmed my suspicions. He had surely collaborated in the falsification of the documents. I looked south toward the rural town in Indiana where Marcus's family was from. The urn with his ashes was in the family plot. I had to open that urn. I called my mother-in-law. Mom, this weekend I want to take Malik to the country to put flowers on his father. I've already paid the whole debt, and I want to go give thanks. It's a very long trip. What are you going for? Said Viola curtly. I can't help it, Mom. Last night I dreamed of Marcus and had asked me to. I'm very worried. Old folks tend to be superstitious. All right, go if you want, but go and come back quick. Yes, I know. I hung up. The trip to Indiana would be the key. In that cold ceramic urn, the whole truth would be revealed. Marcus, you hide from your debts. You make your wife pay them for you, but you won't be able to escape justice. That weekend, under an intense yellow Midwestern sun, I took Malik in my old car down a highway that wound between cornfields. We left at dawn to reach the town before noon. Malik was excited. He wouldn't stop talking, asking about the tractors, about the grandparents he never knew. My son's innocent laughter was like knife stabs in my heart. The purer he was, the heavier the guilt of the adults. I didn't dare tell him the true purpose of our trip. For him, it was a visit to his father's town. For me, it was the trip to find the evidence that would unmask his cruel father. When we arrived in town, several relatives received us warmly. My uncle-in-law, the one who took care of the cemetery, came out to help us with the bags. What a joy, Keshe. It's been so long. Malik is growing into a little man. He's just like his father. That innocent comment hurt me, just like the man who was hiding, the one who in 5 years hadn't sent him even a piece of candy. I smiled and greeted everyone, trying to seem calm. I put some flowers at the church altar and lit a candle. The smoke stung my eyes. With your permission, I'm going to take Malik to the cemetery to put some flowers on his father and tell him I've fulfilled my obligation. I said it out loud so everyone would hear. My uncle nodded. You do well, daughter. Marcus will rest easier. Stay for lunch and go in the afternoon. It's too hot now. No thanks, uncle. I prefer to go now. In the afternoon we have to go back to Chicago so the boy can go to school tomorrow. I rejected his offer. I had to execute my plan at noon when everyone was eating. I took Malik by the hand and we went to the cemetery located at the end of town. The sun beat down, but I didn't feel the heat. In my purse, besides the flowers, I carried a small hammer, a screwdriver, and a micro camera with a charged battery. The town cemetery was silent under the shade of the trees. The graves were clean and orderly. Marcus's niche was in the columbarium wall, 3rd row, with a shiny black granite plate and a photo of him smiling. I placed the flowers. Malik helped me put them. Dad, it's Malik. I came to see you. Help me get good grades. The boy joined his hands and his childish voice resonated in the silence. I looked at him and my eyes filled with tears. Malik, baby, why don't you go play a while over there while I talk a moment with Daddy? Okay, Mama. Malik ran obediently toward a patch of grass to look for grasshoppers. I was left alone in front of the niche. I looked around. Not a soul. At that hour, the whole town was home. I breathed deep to calm myself. With trembling hands, I turned on the micro camera I had hidden in the lapel of my jacket. I had to record that whole process as proof. I approached the niche. The urn was behind a small glass door locked with a key. My uncle had given me a copy the day of the burial in case I wanted to clean it sometime. Had never imagined that key would open that door to such a raw truth. I put the key in the lock. The click sounded dry and metallic. The little glass door opened. The earth-brown ceramic urn appeared before me. Engraved on it was the name Mar